welcome to a new episode of the Mid Post. The playoffs are officially underway as every team has played at least one game thus far. So today I'll be going down the bracket and sharing my thoughts on what's transpired so far. Also want to make a reminder that at the time of me recording this, this is before the game twos for some of the series. We have a couple games tonight. I believe 3 games tonight at the time of me recording this. So by the time you hear this episode, there will be some game twos that have happened, but if you want those thoughts, I'm always live tweeting for the most part during the game. So if you want immediate game 2 thoughts, look towards the Twitter at Desmond Powell _. But of course, today's episode, as far as the podcast, will be focused on all the game 1s and a little bit of the play-in games, but mostly what has transpired as the playoffs have officially started. And I actually want to get into general playoff thoughts before I get into specific series, because there were a lot of general playoff trends that stood out to me and a lot of reminders that I think we get every year come playoff time. A lot of things that get exposed. I don't like the word exposed because it has a negative connotation, but for lack of better term, there are some things every year that happen in the playoffs that kind of expose teams, player tendencies, things of that nature. And I want to talk about that. In the first element that I want to mention is the importance of having a floor general. I mean, this playoffs has already reminded us why it's so important to have a floor general on an NBA roster. So many teams come into the playoffs and experience the culture shock that comes with the postseason because they realize their best scorers need easier touches. What has worked for 82 games in this high pace, high space offense is not necessarily going to work come playoff time. I think, in fact, the Atlanta Hawks probably had the best transition of a team that used a lot of what worked in the regular season to work in the playoffs. Unfortunately, they did lose game 1. They kind of lost it in the fourth quarter. More on that later. But outside of them, I was just like, wow, it's a shame that still in the year 2026, it takes the playoffs for teams to realize this. And the funny thing about the importance of having a floor general, though, is that even teams that don't necessarily have one still kind of find a way to get around it. Some of the best teams tend to do that, like the Boston Celtics, for example. They don't really have a floor general. Peyton Pritchard is a score first guard. Derek White he came into the league as a combo guard, so he can fulfill the duties a little bit, but even him, a lot of his value comes on the defensive side and what he can do from beyond the arc. While he is an underrated scorer inside the arc, a lot of it is they trust him to knock down threes and play good defense on the other end. And even the Celtics, though, despite them not having a true floor general, there is a collective understanding across the organization, not just the players, but from management in the front office all the way down, that their 2 best players are 2 of the best half-court scorers in the league. And at the end of the day, they empower their best players to play to their strengths while establishing that balance of new school and old school hoops. I mean, you look at how they started against the Sixers. I loved the shot selection from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown too, but especially Jason Tatum, his first few touches of the game. I mean, getting a patient touch against Andre Drummond, which is technically a mismatch depending on how you look at it, right? It's a disadvantage for Andre Drummond, but Andre Drummond does have some height and some strength on him, right? But he patiently gets the ball around the block, the mid-post area. He surveys the floor with patience. He doesn't panic when he sees the Sixers rotations. He's looking to see if his teammates are cutting to the basket, and finally just makes the decision to say, you know what? I can just rise up to my fadeaway because I just don't trust that Andre Drummond is going to contest my shot. I think he's more so worried about me driving or making a pass. And that's exactly what happened. He cashed in the jumper. There was another time he was able to seal off Tyrese Maxey. He felt the mismatch behind him at the elbow. The minute he caught it, he pivoted, squared his feet to the basket, and just immediately pulled up over the smaller Maxey because he knew there's no chance that this guy is going to be able to contest my shot. There was another trip. He gets the ball at the top of the key, pump fakes the 3, drives inside, takes a wide open mid-range from the free throw line area. Like, it was just patient, cerebral basketball. Like, Jason Tatum has grown as a passer. Jaylen Brown has grown as a passer. Like I said, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, they've grown as passers as well. So, like, these are just 4 decision makers that are just all on the same page, no matter what the goal of the Celtics offense is. And to me, that's why even a team like them without a floor general has success. But when I watch some of the other teams like the Atlanta Hawks, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Houston Rockets, they all experienced moments where they needed a player to control the tempo and be that on-court coach offensively. And unfortunately, they just didn't have that, and it showed in their losses. Another aspect that I want to point out about this as well is that this era of positionless basketball has moments of beauty because it's versatile and it's free flowing, right? But the playoffs remind me why I personally can never bring myself to believe that this is the best era of basketball. It is certainly the most exciting. I could hear you if you said that. It is certainly the most electric. It is certainly the era with the most roster depth. All of that is great, but it is also the most lenient style of basketball. And I believe that it misses a lot of the patience and cerebral basketball that we witnessed that was really mandatory prior to 2016. Sure, we get a lot of intelligent actions and sets from coaches on a daily basis. Okay, don't miss what I'm saying. That aspect has not changed, and in fact, probably gotten a little bit better. But this is more about the side effects that come with enforcing high volume shooting, league wide pace and space, and the greater emphasis on score first lineups. Because even as I say that, this isn't just an offensive thing. This affects defense too, this whole positionless era of basketball. How in the world are the Phoenix Suns supposed to hang with the Oklahoma City Thunder when they are relying on guards to crash the boards against Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren? That is OKC's twin towers on the glass, and you mean to tell me you have to rely on Jordan Goodwin and really gang rebounding just to have a chance at getting rebounds? At that point, because of positionless basketball, their best bet is to get out and transition and beat those bigs down the floor, right? But that's hard to do against the Oklahoma City team that was second in the NBA in opponents' points off turnovers. You're not going to get out and run against that team. And sticking with the Phoenix Suns and this conversation centered around floor generals, I mean, they have a great example of this because Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks are the total opposite of floor generals. Those guys are scorers. You can put them on any team in the league, and their responsibility is to help you score the basketball. Devin Booker, on the other hand, has experience playing combo guard. Yes, he is a scorer at heart. We know that Devin Booker can get buckets, but he also had that experience even before Chris Paul and whatnot, playing the combo guard and it working well for the Phoenix Suns. And the thing about this is, and the reason why I bring this up is because Devin Booker got a lot of critique for the way that he played in the first play-in game and a little bit of the second one as well. And I just think there's general confusion with why he may not be putting up the scoring numbers that people feel like he should. And it's just because the personnel that they have requires that he is the primary decision maker. This is why in the play-in games, and when you watch game one versus OKC, we saw Jordan Ott often play Green and or Brooks while Devin Booker was on the floor. If there was only one scorer on the floor, it wasn't Devin Booker. It was Jalen Green. So most of the time, Devin Booker is playing with two other scorers with similar skill sets that he has, mid-range game, a little bit of post game, step backs, things of that nature. And that's going to require that Devin Booker sacrifice his shots to make sure that they still have a balanced Phoenix Suns offense as a whole. And this is the primary reason why Devin Booker hasn't been as aggressive as fans would like him to be. Another reason would be that he's constantly getting blitzed on pick and rolls. I said this a few weeks ago that was my thing with Devin Booker throughout this season, even the regular season. The immediate game plan for a lot of teams was to take the ball out of Devin Booker's hands, put two on the ball, and just get the ball out of his hands because it's really pick your poison, right? You would much rather have Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks potentially shoot you out of a game than Devin Booker get in rhythm. And so I think, again, a lot of this is context. A lot of this is why I take so much pride on the courtside perspective of things, right? Because yes, a lot of this stuff looks great on paper. We like the ideas of positionless basketball. We like the efficiency that comes with pace and space and versatile offenses and whatnot. Like I said, it's awesome to see. But at its core, when you come into a playoff environment, when these weaknesses start to show, it becomes clear why the teams that are successful are who they are and the teams that aren't successful. Now, on the flip side of this example, look at the Los Angeles Lakers. They thrived versus a Houston Rockets team because they knew that they had an S tier floor general in LeBron James and three different styles of scoring options for him to work with. You have Luke Kennard, who you can run a ton of off-ball actions for, pick and roll actions. So many options came out of Luke Kennard's hot night. Rui Hachimura being a mid-range specialist. There were so many times where Rui got open mid-range shots. I believe that team was just so on the same page. They weren't stepping on each other's toes. Everybody knew their roles because they had a floor general to orchestrate it all. Even DeAndre Ayton as a role man, low post option. They had so many options in just those three players who on paper aren't these star-studded players, but it works because you have somebody like LeBron James who knows how to get these guys in their spots, knows what their strengths are, and plays to their strengths, and doesn't because even when you watch that game, it wasn't a new school style of basketball, right? It was, and a lot of people were saying it was kind of boring, right? Like it wasn't electric. Obviously, with injuries to Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and Kevin Durant, that certainly has something to do with that. Okay, but at the end of the day, it was a very vintage basketball game in that regard. The Lakers won that game because they played patient, cerebral basketball. LeBron James had that game under control from start to finish, and you even got to credit JJ Redick as well. Like he had to revert to the style of basketball that he and LeBron came up playing, the style of basketball that was once mandatory, and it got them a well-controlled win. It wasn't an exciting win necessarily, but it was well controlled. And that is the difference in having somebody like LeBron James, who at his core is a floor general, compared to some of the teams like the Phoenix Suns who don't have that. Now, the playoffs also expose decision-making skills from players and coaches. And this is always tough to watch. And I think about the Toronto Raptors, who seem to treat the playoffs like the regular season. They had a lot of solid shot diversity, even without Emmanuel Quickley, which was really cool to see. But at the same time, it created an environment where Brandon Ingram felt like he only had to take 9 shots a game. And Brandon Ingram can't have 9 shots in the playoffs. It came out in the press conference that Coach Rajakovic wanted him as a screener. And the issue with that is that Brandon Ingram is your best scorer. He must be first priority offensively. Like, a lot of people are giving flack to Brandon Ingram. A lot of former players saying, oh, this ain't how you're supposed to do it. Like, if I'm Brandon Ingram, say something in a timeout, demand the basketball, like, forget what the coach is saying. Like, know your strengths. This is the playoffs. You have to speak up. And I totally understand where they're coming from. And I also see the other side of it. Like, if coach is seeing something that the players may not be seeing, like, he has every right to say, like, hey, I want to use you in this way. But I think, again, it just comes down to the root of the players and knowing your personnel. KYP. Brandon Ingram, it was funny because it makes me think of Kobe Bryant, right? What was his joke? I'm a shooting guard because I shoot and I guard. Those are my primary responsibilities, to shoot and guard. If you're expecting other things, you have it all messed up. I think it was a similar thing here with Brandon Ingram, right? Like, at the end of the day, everybody, Coach Rajakovic and Brandon Ingram and the entire Raptors team, has to understand this is our guy. Regardless, we have to get him the basketball. I don't care if he wants to shoot 9 shots. He has to shoot more than 9 shots. He actually needs to shoot about 20 in the playoffs, especially when you have an injury to a guy like Emmanuel Quickley. So that was interesting to see. I think it also, there was a moment in the Lakers game where Jabari Smith Jr., he had a third quarter turnover versus the Lakers where I believe they had a 3-on-2 or a 3-on-1 fast break. He has a teammate on either side, and once he gets to the middle of the floor, he can just pick and choose who he wants to pass it to, get an easy bucket in transition. But instead, he tried to like weave around his defender and I guess create a different angle, whether that was for himself, whether he planned on passing it eventually, I don't know. But it just looked really ugly. And unfortunately, you see a lot of that stuff in the regular season too. This is what I mean. The playoffs is really going to expose this kind of stuff where you have players who are, I see a lot of times players are running in transition. Their big men beat everybody down the floor. They have their hand up and it's like they're so focused on taking the quick three that they just totally miss the big man. And you see some teams where somebody else catches the ball and has to last minute fire it to the big man because it's like, dude, how did you not see that? You know, the decision making sometimes from some of these players is just really baffling. sometimes. So that was something that stood out to me as well. Like, it's just easy missed opportunities really come back to bite you in the playoffs, and like, you have to clean those things up. You have to clean those things up. And then the last thing I want to kind of say here is the playoffs, as we know, also reveals improvements to be made in the summertime, right? You look at Brandon Ingram, who right after the play-in game was at the press conference and said he already plans on adding muscle mass in the offseason to combat that physicality. He knows that that's his next step to take. Like, okay, you know what? Maybe this is why I'm having trouble scoring, or maybe this is why I'm having trouble withstanding some of the contact from teams like the Orlando Magic. Like, we're in the Eastern Conference, which tends to be a lot more grittier and physical compared to the Western Conference. I need to put on that muscle so I can hang for longer periods of time. So that was really cool to hear him say that. I was watching the Raptors, and I thought that Colin Murray Boyles should really develop a mid-range jump shot just beyond the free throw line, because he often found himself up top as a DHO hub, or the Raptors have kind of recognized that he has a little bit of those Draymond Green tendencies, not necessarily as a passer, but just somebody who can be a glue guy on the floor. And when I noticed, like, when the Cavaliers they were on to that. And when the defense is denying those passes and preventing you from those easy dribble handoffs, like, he essentially has a wide open mid-range shot. Now, if he's confident, he can take that and make the defense pay. But now you're letting them off the hook because they took away your first option, and now you're technically the second option, and they know that you're not going to shoot it. So boom, now your play is officially dead. And so I would like to see him develop that. Again, I know it's not cool in today's game, but it's basketball. It's like, play to your strengths, do the smart thing, improve your game, get a jump shot. So now you can make them pay. All right, you take away the handoff, I can still knock down the J because you're sagging off. And so now if I hit a couple of those, that dribble handoff might open up now, because now they're going to be worrying, all right, he hit a few. Now we got to pick and choose, but we got to pick our poison on defense. So I think that's already, after just one game, that's something that I would like to see from Colin Murray Boyles. And then when I watch the Hawks and the Knicks, I'm looking at Jonathan Kuminga, who, again, if you follow the platform, if you follow me, I was high on this Kuminga trade. And I mean, Jonathan Kuminga, I did not realize how quick he was to be his size, to have his size and strength. I didn't realize, like, he's really quick. Really, he can be really lethal as a slasher, but unfortunately, he does not have a go-to move. There were plenty of times versus the Knicks where he forced up tough shots, and it was like he knew where he wanted to get to, but he just didn't know what he was going to do once he got there. It's like, see ball, get ball, see spot. Like, I need to get there, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know, what do I do when, like, how do I manage to use my body to protect the ball, but at the same time not get myself into trouble and get trapped and have to make a tough pass. And Jonathan Kuminga has to make teams pay for putting the worst/smallest defender on him. They were putting Jalen Brunson on him. They were putting Jordan Clarkson on him. And I was like, wow, like, Jonathan Kuminga has an advantage every trip down here. And like I said, he had his moments. He was getting to the cup, but he just couldn't finish when he got there. It's like he just didn't know what was the best move for him to do. And that's what he's going to have to work on this offseason as well, especially if the Hawks plan on keeping him around long term. And with this lineup that they have, like, he was very integral for that game. And unfortunately, he just couldn't convert outside of the transition opportunity. So I would love to see that from him. So again, the playoffs continue to show players what they can improve on in the season, and show teams like, hey, here are some holes in your offense that you can clean up, and eventually, hopefully combat defenses in multiple ways by implementing diverse skill sets with all your players. So the playoffs always remind us why it's a whole different ball game compared to the regular season. And no matter the status, at some point, every team is met with the opportunity to look inwardly and evaluate various aspects of their roster that needs improvement or adjustments. With a mix of league-wide trends and team-specific trends, these are just a few of the elements that stood out to me the most after just a couple of days of postseason action. Let me know what you've seen so far in the YouTube comments, or tweet the show at MidPostPod, or you can tweet me directly at DesmondPowell_ to join the conversation. Now on to some thoughts and insights from game one. And I'm just going to go down the bracket and start with the Toronto Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers, going off the schedule from the past weekend. And the thing about this game, as expected, James Harden absolutely dissected the Raptors defense and pretty much got whatever he wanted. James Harden really looked like he looked fresh. I was going to say his prime self, but I didn't want to get too carried away. But James Harden looked that fresh. He looked that alive in the game. Just absolutely whatever he wanted. He sizing up RJ Barrett, throwing lobs to Mobley and Allen, hitting shooters like Max Strus. Like it was just a really nice game from James Harden. Obviously, he and Donovan Mitchell with their star power as superstar scorers in this league, totally unfazed by even the Raptors defense, who a defense that has been praised for much of the year. They made that defense look like average, right, with what they were doing. And like I said earlier, Max Strus, man, such a perfect player to have around James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. When you look at him having 24 points on 8 of 10 shooting, 4-6 from 3. I mean, as two ball handlers that's just going to draw a lot of attention, having a shooter like Max Strus, who is still very fresh because he just came back not too long ago, like he's not feeling as much as that wear and tear over the course of an 82 game season yet. So he's feeling good and he's knocking down shots, stepping up in the playoffs. I was very proud of Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, right? If you remember what I said in the Eastern Conference playoff preview a few weeks back, the biggest thing that they were going to have to do is control the glass, because that they were, at the time of that recording, they were 16-3 when they out rebounded the opposing team's power forward and center. And they did that versus the Raptors. They had combined for 14 rebounds. They had 7 each. And on the flip side, you had Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl, who only combined for 7 rebounds. So again, when they're aggressive and they're making sure they're getting the rebounds, it generally always works in their favor. And even stressing on Evan Mobley, I just thought he had a really good game. He was aggressive. I believe his stat line was 17, 7, and 4. I think he can play even better than that. That's the scary thing. But again, he and Jarrett Allen, they did what they were supposed to do, and it works. That's all it is in the playoffs. If you take care of business, take it one day at a time, focus on the things that you do well, your chances of winning increase. They're not guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed, but the chances certainly increase. And it was just an overall very convincing victory for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And like I said, you could still get better minutes out of Dennis Schroeder, who didn't play a lot. Dennis Schroeder only played 12 minutes. You could still get better production from him. Sam Merrill could have knocked down a few shots. Jalen Tyson didn't make any shots. Like, the fact that these guys have yet to play some of their best basketball is a good sign for the Cleveland Cavaliers moving forward. And like I said, is a testament to a lot of that versatile playmaking that I've alluded to over the past few weeks. Unfortunately, the thing about it, again, we just still have to see if James Harden's positive performance continues, right? We got to be a little cautious when talking about James Harden, but at least judging off game one, that brother looked good. If he can play like that for majority of the playoffs, the Cavaliers should be in a good spot. They should be in a good spot. I still don't know about the finals or conference finals, things of that nature. But if James Harden's going to play like that, I like their chances. Now, on the flip side with the Toronto Raptors, Scotty Barnes set the tone for this team. He came out really aggressive. He had 9 points on 3 threes in just the first 6 minutes that he was playing. But unfortunately, he got caught up in some ticky-tack fouls, and he had 2 quick ones. So he didn't even get to really ride that wave as long as he should have / could have. But again, I was impressed from his offensive aggression. There was good offensive depth from the Raptors, even without Emmanuel Quickley. You had RJ Barrett, who had a really efficient 24 points. Jamal Shed was knocking down his threes, man. How about Jamal Shed? Somebody who wasn't shooting the ball great this season. 5 of 6 from deep, 17 points. Again, without Emmanuel Quickley, he stepped up. You get 14 from Colin Murray-Boyles on 7 of 8 shooting. I was impressed. I was impressed. You still wanted to get more out of Jakob Poeltl. I thought Sandro Mamukelashvili could have did a little bit more. And obviously Brandon Ingram with the 9 shots. Like, there were some things that prevented the Raptors from really stealing this game. But that first half was really good. They were hanging in there. But unfortunately, the Raptors' second half trends continued. That was the other thing we talked about. They're just not a good second half team. And like I said, we're all talking about Brandon Ingram taking 9 shots a game. But understand, 5 of those shots were in the first quarter, which means over the course of the next 3 quarters, Brandon Ingram only took 4 shots. I mean, that just can't happen. That just can't happen. And as the game continued, they lost that momentum in the third quarter. I mean, when you look at the fact that they were down 7 at halftime, and then all of a sudden they're down 21 by the end of the third quarter. I mean, they just absolutely lost pulse of the game, which again, they only showed in spurts, but were doing enough to hang in there with the Cavaliers. But again, it was something that I tweeted. You just knew that the Cavaliers avalanche was coming, because at the end of the day, the Raptors may have hung around, but the Cavs just have more burst offensively. They have more star power, and even defensively, they're just better. Or I should say, they have more length, right? So I do expect an aggressive Brandon Ingram in game 2. I think both teams are expecting that. Brandon Ingram's expecting that. I think he's going to empty the clip, to be quite honest. And I'm just curious to see if the Cavs are already prepared for that, and if the Raptors can still get complimentary production from guys like Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Jamal Shed, while Ingram looks for his shot more. Because that's the thing. If Brandon Ingram is going to take more shots, somebody's going to get less shots. And so are you playing into the Cavs' hands that way, right? Is Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs already ahead of that and saying that's what we want? We want Brandon Ingram to feel like he has to do everything, because the more we can just kind of contain him, we won't worry about everybody else and still have control of the game. I'm thinking of those kind of strategic things as well. So I'm anxious to see what game 2 looks like. Like I said, I will be tweeting. If I'm not editing this, I will be tweeting during the game with my thoughts. But yes, that was my thoughts from game 1 for the Toronto Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Then on to the second game that day, Timberwolves and Nuggets. Highly anticipated series from a lot of us. I know I said that the Nuggets don't want to see the Timberwolves in a first round series. They are. And the good thing is they hung in there and they looked like their championship selves. I mean, it was just, I can't lie. I was getting championship vibes from the Nuggets. The crowd was electric. Jamal Murray had a textbook playoff performance. Not the kind of playoff performance that you would think, but textbook in the sense that he did not let up. Jamal Murray, he kept attacking regardless of the shot outcome. He didn't settle and let the T-Wolves take him out the game. It's basketball 101. When you miss shots, especially from outside, you attack the basket. And attacking the basket is going to reward you with free throws more often than not. And that's Jamal Murray to a T. He may have went 0 of 8 from the three-point line. He may have shot 7 of 22 from the field. But you know what? I'm going to keep being aggressive, and I'm going to hit all 16 of my free throws. He got to the line when his jump shot wasn't falling, and he still had a 30-point night and led his team to a victory. He could have easily just chilled back like a lot of guys do in the playoffs and say, oh, well, it's just not my night. Somebody else got it. No, he said, I'm going to be the difference and show and put the league on notice that even in a bad shooting night for me, I'm still playoff Jamal Murray. I'm still going to help my boy out, Jokic. I'm still going to be there for my teammates and make sure that I'm holding up my end somehow, some way. And that is why Jamal Murray is a champion. And to me, if he continues to have that mindset moving forward, the Denver Nuggets are going to continue to be hard to beat. Games like this are the ones that separate contending teams from the rest of the field. And the Nuggets made a decent game 1 statement in that regard. And even despite a pretty tight rotation, the Nuggets took care of business. I mean, it was business as usual for Nikola Jokic, just a cool little efficient triple-double, no big deal. Not like he doesn't do that every day, right? You know, Nikola Jokic did his thing. But even when you look at the role players, they just all, I thought, contributed in a lot of ways. Like, you look at Bruce Brown getting 5 steals. You look at Christian Brown getting helping out on the glass, getting 8 rebounds for his size, right? Rebound on his position well. You look at Aaron Gordon always being in the right place at the right time. You know, the broadcast crew, D Wade, Kevin Harlan, Candace, they were raving about Aaron Gordon all game because that's just what he does. And he's healthy at the right time. You look at just the way that their role players stepped up in subtle ways in what was otherwise low key a winnable game for the Minnesota Timberwolves at various points. They stuck to what they do best. Nobody was on each other's toes, and they got a nice game 1 win. Now, with the Minnesota Timberwolves in mind, the main takeaway that I had from this game is that it's just hard to win when your role players show up, but your best players are struggling to make shots and attack a loaded defense. The Nuggets did an excellent job clogging Anthony Edwards' driving lanes. I went over this in the past. The Nuggets have a very good containing defense, right? They will, at the very least, play those boxes and elbows and prevent, and they want to influence you to shoot, to settle for jumpers. And because Anthony Edwards is having some knee trouble, it didn't seem like he wanted to attack those seams, right? Not only do you risk dribbling into traffic, but he can't even use his explosiveness to attack those seams. It makes his jump shots even that much more important, right? And so it influences him to pass or settle for step back threes on that bad knee. And even when you look at Anthony Edwards, he had a decent game, 22, 9, and 7. He impacted the game in other ways, but he just clearly looked limited by that knee. His shot looked a little flat throughout the game. I noticed that really early on. His shot didn't look good. He didn't have a lot of arc on it. And it just really limited the Wolves' ability to regain control of the game in the third and fourth quarters. They had their moments where they came close and they made a couple runs, but they just didn't have enough to outlast the Nuggets and what they were doing. And you look at that and think about, hey, some of those misses from Edwards and Randall are makes. They probably win that game. But unfortunately, the ball just didn't go their way. And it was a good game from Rudy Gobert. I thought he did really well. I thought Dante DiVincenzo did well. He was knocking down his threes. He got hot early. Ayo Dosunmu was very impactful off the bench. Jaden McDaniels started stepping up his scoring a little bit. And even Mike Conley. Mike Conley played just 10 minutes in this game, but when he came in late first quarter, early second quarter, he got a steal. He got a couple assists. He was able to kind of let the Minnesota Timberwolves breathe and bring that veteran presence, be that floor general that I alluded to earlier in the episode that a lot of these teams need. And he helped them out a little bit. But even with all that, I was just really shocked by Chris Finch's choice to play Naz Reid 17 minutes and Bones Highland only 5 minutes in a game where your two best scorers are struggling. I understand playoff rotations are tighter. I understand you got to be wary of potential defensive weaknesses and things of that nature. I understand all that, but we're talking about two of your best bench players in a game where your all-star caliber scorers were struggling. I would have liked to see them get a chance to be more impactful. I know Naz Reid, he can span anywhere from about 17 to, let's say, 27 minutes a game. It just depends on his performance and how the team is performing. And I know it's very similar with Bones Highland, but yeah, in a game like that, like this is what you have them for, to give you a boost. And I just felt like they both could have used a couple extra minutes for some shot making. But again, it's just one game. There's hopefully plenty of series left. I think Ant-Man and the T-Wolves, if they can look more like themselves, they'll make this a tough series. But if that knee continues to bother Ant-Man and they just can't get it together from their, get the most out of their stars, the Nuggets might wrap this up a bit quicker than expected. But like I said, there's still plenty of series left. The third game that night was the Hawks and the Knicks. One of the more intriguing first-round matchups. And I mean, Jalen Brunson did what he does, man. He got hot early and had MSG rocking. He set the tone, and the Knicks really fed off that energy. And the impressive thing about Jalen Brunson, again, similarly to Allen Iverson, somebody like Kyrie Irving, obviously Steph Curry, like being a smaller guard and just getting in rhythm off jump shots. I mean, that was just impressive. I'm talking like Jalen Brunson was jabbing, hitting middies over taller defenders. Like Jalen Brunson is incredible. So you already knew when he was like, he hit his first 5-6 shots, something like that. You just knew it was that kind of day for him and the Knicks. I thought OG Anunoby was great. 18 points on 9 shots, very similar to Aaron Gordon in that way, where he just knows how to be in the right places at the right times on offense and defense. OG Anunoby is very good at turning defense into offense for the New York Knicks. It was awesome to see Josh Hart lead all teams in rebounds with 14. All of them were defensive rebounds. He just thrived in transition, and that's exactly what I wanted to see from Josh Hart. He is the perfect player to give the Knicks the kind of basketball the Hawks want to play, right? If that makes sense. Josh Hart mirrors what the Hawks want to do. The Hawks want to run in transition. So if the Knicks are struggling to get in transition, Josh Hart is that guy who can come in the game, get a defensive rebound, and push the break and either find a teammate or score himself or even get to the free throw line. And I thought he did an excellent job bringing that energy and matching the Atlanta Hawks and saying, hey, we can thrive in transition too. Like, it's led by me, but we can thrive as a team in transition too. So I thought that was dope. And it was good to see Deuce McBride and Jordan Clarkson give a boost off the bench, especially Jordan Clarkson. And that's exactly what I said last episode, right? In a series like this, the New York Knicks want to make sure that they have some extra offense that they can rely on to match the Hawks. And I thought Jordan Clarkson especially did an excellent job filling that role nicely despite his foul troubles. He did really get into foul trouble. He had 4 fouls and he only played like 11 minutes that game, I want to say. So that's dangerous. That's the side effect of that. But he did give them an offensive boost and kept the crowd rocking and matched the Hawks' high intensity buckets. And then even Karl Anthony Towns. Cat got more aggressive in the second half. He had 19 of his 25 points in the second half. So I liked seeing that from him. Cat is very interesting in that regard because you want to see him be more aggressive, but I think one of his most underrated traits is he knows when it's time to wake up. If he spends the first half kind of observing or rebounding or even just in foul trouble, he knows what he has to do in the second half. It's like he knows he is aware of the game. He is aware of the situation, and he knew that he had to step up, and that's what he did. And I don't think Cat gets enough credit for doing that because what I always say, the Cat is so much better when he taps into that dog, and that's what he did in the second half, and it helped them get over the hump and win that game convincingly. Now, for the Hawks, they gave a good fight, but the Knicks just did a great job of taking their punches and not letting up. The Hawks really thrived off CJ McCollum's playoff experience and shot making ability. I thought he was the main standout player for them. And honestly, the most trustworthy scorer on the team in a playoff environment. Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they did their thing. They stayed aggressive even when some shots didn't go their way. I did like that from them. And like I said, credit to Quinn Snyder because I felt like the Hawks were able to to me, the Hawks didn't look uncomfortable. It just seemed like there were those spurts throughout a game where their defense didn't hold up, which has been a weakness of theirs for most of the season. So I did like what I saw offensively, but there were still some things they could clean up on. Onyeka Okongwu, he had some big threes out of pick and pop. Dyson Daniels was really good. That dude had 9 rebounds and 11 assists. He's not going to score the most points. He's going to get in there with the backdoor cuts and things of that nature, but he's a great defender and a great all-around player, really that glue guy that they really benefit from having on their roster. I mean, the Hawks just offensively showed why they earned this playoff spot. Of course, like I said, it was their defensive flaws that prevented them from winning a game that at points they were on pace of stealing from the Knicks. So it's unfortunate. Like I was really pleased with what I saw for the most part offensively. But like I said earlier, Jonathan Kuminga is just really important for them coming off the bench because he gets staggered with the starters and it requires that his defense and offensive decision-making are on point. And like I said earlier, when he's not finishing those plays on smaller defenders, that's definitely going to take a hit to his overall impact and really what the Hawks are trying to bring with having him on the floor in those lineups. Again, if he's got the smaller matchup, he's got to take advantage of those opportunities because when they miss and he throws up a tough shot, you're just letting the Knicks off the hook at that point. And so, yes, those points could have helped. And I just think generally, points aren't the issue with the Hawks. They could still clean up some things, but points aren't the issue. I think the game went away from them in the fourth quarter. If they can't put pressure on the Knicks half-court defense, specifically CJ McCollum, Jalen Johnson, and Jonathan Kuminga, and supplement the threes that they were getting and the transition points that they were getting with free throws, they can put up a better fight. The Knicks, they won the rebound battle, and their 2 best players at the end of the day know how to get to the free throw line. To me, that was the separator. The Hawks have to look to mirror that approach the same way they kept up with the Knicks' overall scoring volume. Like, if you watched that game and you looked at the box score afterwards, it was like, oh, shoot, the Hawks were really keeping up with the Knicks from shooting volume and shooting success. Like, it was pretty much even, but it was those free throws and the rebounds that they could have got. So I'm very interested to see what the rest of this series looks like. I do think the Hawks can get at least one. I can't say when that will be, but I do think the Hawks can put up a better fight than even they might think, right? Like, I think the Hawks, they went into game 1 looking to steal that game, but unfortunately there were some things that didn't go their way. But if they can clean up some of those things, they can put up a better fight for sure. Then moving on to the last game of that night, Rockets versus Lakers. I don't have too much to say here. I did go over a little bit of it earlier. But again, LeBron James, man, he controlled every aspect of that Lakers win. I thought he set the tone on both ends. Again, it was playoff Bron. You saw it on his face. I know you saw it on his face. Bron wasn't smiling. He wasn't happy-go-lucky as he usually is. He was in that zero dark 30 mode that he gets in come playoff time. And I thought he was hitting first on defense. He was crashing the glass. He was doing what LeBron James does, man. He even at 48,000 years old, he knows what he's doing. He prioritized getting the most out of his teammates early. He empowered them and built their confidence in a game without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. And really, when you look at it, LeBron didn't really look for his shot that much till the second half and really the fourth quarter of that game. And all of this just makes sense versus a Rockets team with Kevin Durant. I am aware of that. Or excuse me, without Kevin Durant. I am aware of that injury, but the point still stands. To be the superstar that LeBron James has been, his leadership style is by far the most underrated because he does have a little bit of that. Let's say this. He does have that killer instinct that a lot of people don't think he has. And for him to look at his teammates and say, like I said, Iman Shumpert said it best. LeBron James is a come with me leader. He's not a follow me or, just do what I do. It is no, I'm going to help you get on the same level as me. And that is why the Lakers, I feel like, thrived in a game like that because they were down two very important players as well. And to me, the interesting part about the Rockets versus Lakers series is that both of these teams don't have great depth. So that game really could have went either way. But again, LeBron James I felt like was just IQ wise, just far ahead of anything the Raptors were doing, the Rockets were doing. Because the Rockets, they struggled to score in one-on-one scenarios, which was really their entire offense. Şengün, he didn't hit first, in my opinion. I thought he was way too relaxed in the first half, and he didn't really get going until the third, fourth quarter. Amen Thompson is tough because he isn't a good outside shooter. And so a lot of his points have to come inside. Jabari Smith, I felt like he went through the motions. It was just a very vintage basketball game from both teams. And like I said, I just think the better team, the smarter team, won that game, and that was the Los Angeles Lakers. So I'm looking to see, like, if I'm the Houston Rockets, like, if I'm Alperen Şengün, I have to set the tone early. If I'm Jabari Smith Jr., I have to get involved a little bit more. I have to make smarter decisions in transition. If I'm Amen Thompson, I really got to figure out how can I attack and still not be taken out the game because I can't shoot, right? Like I said, Amen Thompson, don't get it twisted. He has improved his mid-range shot. But again, teams are going to be more than willing to give him that until he can show he can knock it down consistently. So yeah, it's looking tough already for the Rockets, but again, it is a long series. But if we're presuming that Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves are going to come back at some point, it could get ugly for the Rockets, and especially if Kevin Durant isn't able to come back either. So going into game 2, I do expect LeBron and the Lakers to do the exact same thing. I just think they are a better cohesive unit than the Rockets, even with their injuries. On to the second day of Game 1 games, we tipped off with the Philadelphia 76ers and the Boston Celtics. And the Celtics played prototype basketball. It is why I've been calling them the prototype all year long. They made threes. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they operated comfortably and patiently in the mid-range. Their defense was incredible. That was playoff defense. They had a lot of back and forths with the officials and other Sixers players. But I was like, look, this is the playoffs. Like, this is playoff whistles going on. And I love that. And at the end of the day, the Celtics defense was just crazy. They had tight, timely rotations. They were hugging those off-ball actions for Paul George and VJ Edgecombe. They were playing tight, and Jaylen Brown was taking some of that responsibility. Jason Tatum was taking some of that responsibility. It was great to see. They actually had a very strong ability to impact shots, not only from in front of the offense, but behind. I thought that was the most underrated aspect of the Celtics defense. They were doing an excellent job making the Sixers overthink jumpers solely because they were nervous that somebody was going to come from behind and block their shot. I saw it from Tyrese Maxey. I saw it from VJ Edgecombe. I think Paul George a little bit. Like, That was it's hard to do that without fouling, and the Celtics made it look easy. I thought Nehemiah Queta thrived in pick and roll situations despite limited minutes due to his foul trouble, but he was pretty much getting whatever he wanted. Just a lot went right for the Celtics. They checked a lot of boxes of things that they know they do well, and they looked like a team that knows they're fit for June. When you looked at Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, that genuinely just looked like dudes who knew this is just the beginning of where we're going to be. Not where we're trying to be, where we're going to be. And when you have that confidence and just that everybody's on the same page, you're well coached, like it that yeah, the Celtics are dangerous. They are dangerous playing like that. Now, on the other side, the Sixers were just very underwhelming. They generated, to their credit, they did generate a lot of open looks from all three levels that just didn't fall. At the end of the day, the Sixers just couldn't buy a bucket. A lot of the shots we've seen them make over the course of the season just did not go in that first game in Boston. I mean, welcome to Boston, Philly, because it was a rough day at the office. It was a rough day at the office. When we think about specifics, I've been alluding to it all year long. This is Tyrese Maxey's wake-up call. I mean, when I watch Tyrese Maxey play, I don't ever see him initiate an action that's for somebody else. Tyrese Maxey is always going to initiate an action that is involved for him. So whether that's a layup or a three-pointer, or at worst case, he's going to get doubled and find the open man, or he's going to drive and kick. But it's never, hey, Dominic Barlow, I saw you miss a layup. Let me see if I can get you something easy. Hey, Paul George, you've been quiet. Let me see if I can run in the next few plays for you. Hey, VJ Edgecombe, let me see if I can get you something. Hey, Andre Drummond, you used to be a good low post player. Like, I want you to use your strength to your advantage, and I want to get you something here, whether that's pick and roll or low post. Like, I don't see him do that a lot. And that, again, that's what it means to be a floor general, understanding how to run a team. Once upon a time, that was the requirement if you wanted to be a lead guard, a point guard in the NBA. You had to balance running a team and knowing how to get your own buckets. Tyrese Maxey, that's his next step. He's got to learn how to call plays that may be able to help his teammates find rhythm just as much as it helps himself find rhythm. And like I said, that's just hard to embrace because, again, he is just one of those lead guards in today's NBA that struggle to become that player because it's so important that they prioritize their own shots. If Tyrese Maxey is the best player on the floor, well, he has to focus on getting his own shots. So it's a tough dynamic, but the Sixers do have some other players where Tyrese Maxey can learn how to do that. And the crazy thing about the Philadelphia 76ers is that it felt like their most important archetypes of players were out of the rotation or just off the team. Because as many shots as they were missing, I know I was sitting there like, wow, wouldn't it be nice if we had a shooter, a sharp shooting specialist to maybe help us see a couple go through the net and reignite our offense? Oh, right, we traded him to OKC, Jared McCain. Ouch. Okay, well, man, it sure would be nice to have a low post pick and pop threat or an extra isolation player and rebounder because both of our bigs got in foul trouble in the first quarter. Oh, yeah. Well, he's injured. He's out with a appendicitis. So unfortunately, we can't do anything about that. Man, wouldn't it be nice if we had an experienced floor general, an on-court coach to bring composure to this team during the Celtics runs and foul troubles that we're experiencing? Oh, yeah, Kyle Lowry. Well, he's older, so he can't do much on the floor. We're not going to really throw him out here, but we gotta pray and hope that what he's preaching on the bench transfers over here. Like, the Sixers' most important pieces, they just didn't have. And when I'm watching those games, I'm like, the Sixers will need to add a point forward if they want to play through Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe moving forward, whether through the draft or a future trade or free agency or what have you. Because funny enough, this team needs a Ben Simmons. It's unfortunate the way Ben Simmons' career panned out because they need what he was giving the Sixers almost a decade ago. Because Tyrese Maxey is shoot first and VJ Edgecombe is becoming who they hope to be the next young wing scorer in this league, they're going to need somebody at the point forward spot to do what Tyrese Maxey isn't really able to do, or to take that load off and give some of those other, especially that floor general presence for this team that desperately needs it. And because the Sixers just couldn't find a rhythm whatsoever. And the only player that was really in any kind of rhythm was Paul George. And even Paul George didn't have a crazy game. He only took 8 shots. But he had a healthy balance of free throws, field goals, and he had one of the Sixers' 4 made 3-pointers. And Paul George, he wasn't as aggressive as he should have been, because the funny thing is he's older. So it looked like he was actively trying to conserve his body just in case he had to play 38, 40 minutes. Like, that's a shame that the Sixers had that much of a dry night to where PG felt like it was one of those nights like, I got to make sure I'm ready for the fourth. And it just turned into a very passive night, despite him really being the only one comfortable in a playoff environment. So the Sixers just had a lot of playoff inexperienced players. And like I said earlier, it was just a rough day at the office. They have a lot of young guys, have a lot of guys that are still learning, the playoffs. It's just a rough day against a battle-tested championship caliber team. So unfortunately, you got to flush a game like that and then move on to the next one. And hopefully, because they'll look better when those shots start falling. But yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be a very long series between the Sixers and the Celtics, unfortunately. But the Celtics, credit to them. They definitely tipped off the playoffs in great fashion. The following game was the Phoenix Suns and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And man, I was looking forward to this series, but with these injuries to Grayson Allen and Mark Williams, I don't feel too great about the Suns, man, because this was a casual OKC Big Three performance. I mean, you look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander struggling to shoot the basketball, but still gets to the line and still finds open teammates. You look at J-Dub returning as the ultimate glue guy who can get a shot for himself as well, turn defense to offense. He was incredible. Chet Holmgren protecting the rim and making timely plays and shots on both ends of the floor. It was just a classic Big Three OKC performance, and they could still do much better, be much more dominant. You look at what I said about J-Dub. J-Dub said he felt 100% for the first time all year. So good luck now. Good luck trying to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder now, because J-Dub says he's 100% for the first time all year. And that absolutely goes against my proposed strategy of forcing him to shoot. He quickly showed that, indeed, he was 100% healthy. When your second best player is healthy at the perfect time, that is just even more likely going to give the Oklahoma City Thunder an easy road to the conference finals. God forbid any other setbacks. And the biggest thing, which we've been preaching the last few years, how insane was that Thunder defense? I mean, they have great screen navigation. They're agile enough to maneuver through screens and versatile enough to switch anything. I mean, they will blow up every pick and roll you have. They have great help defense. They load up on post entry passes, so they get the ball out of the go-to guy's hands. They influence those tougher skip passes, which, like I said last year, Alex Caruso is Troy Polamalu. Cason Wallace is Ed Reed, and Lou Dort is Brian Dawkins. When you have those guys out there, they're gonna pick off every pass you got. Like it's insane. Having Chet is one thing, but the fact that even guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and J-Dub, they don't mind blocking shots at the rim and being the last line of defense. Like, that is such a blessing to that team's defense. There's like not a hole defensively at all. They are just extremely empowered defensively. They also have a great display of active hands, like I just alluded to. They are physical enough to influence offensive players to pass or limit their dribbles, and they are active enough to deflect passes out of pick and roll scenarios, and really any pass they find a way to get their hands in the lane. It's insane to watch. So OKC just absolutely dominated the Suns. And as I touch on the Suns, they just continue to miss that floor spacing from Grayson Allen and that rebounding and size that they get from Mark Williams. I mean, this is a team that just had a straight up inability to crash the defensive glass, and that resulted in second and even third opportunities for the Thunder. Missed shots from other Suns resulted in more contested shots from the scorers, like when Royce O'Neal and Jordan Goodwin aren't in rhythm and things of that nature. It's just going to require that Devin Booker and Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green take those tougher shots that they can make, but that are likely going to miss versus a great OKC defensive team. I mean, and even when you look at this, Devin Booker, there was at one point in the game, Devin Booker, Jalen Green, and Dylan Brooks had 51 of the Suns' 63 points. you're just not going to win in the playoffs when you're relying on three dudes to get all your points pretty much. And sure, that might have looked decent in 2011, but in the year 2026, especially versus a team like OKC, that's just not going to fly. That's not going to fly. I was optimistic, like I said, that the Suns were going to be able to give OKC a respectable fight, but that's just not going to be the case if they can't get healthy. And like I said, defensive rebounding, we went over that last episode. Defensive rebounding has been the biggest weakness probably of the Phoenix Suns. And that was clear as day versus OKC. Like, it is hard to win that way. It is very hard to win that way. So I think OKC is going to wrap this up pretty quickly if the Suns can't show some fight, especially on the glass. Moving on to the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons. Man, what an interesting game this was. This was lit from start to finish. I mean, the Magic brought the intensity from the opening tip. And it was funny, like a lot of people tweeting and whatnot, like they did, in fact, look like a just different team than what we've seen in the past. Like Jalen Suggs was everywhere defensively. He hit a couple quick threes, and then he got some steals. He got that transition dunk. Like Jalen Suggs was an animal out there setting the tone. I call him Beige Caruso, but he, obviously he's got a lot more to the table than Alex Caruso, but he brings that same animalistic defense, right? Where he's just everywhere. I love Paolo Banchero operating in the post. I mean, to me, when I watch Paolo Banchero, because there was so much critique about Paolo, and I fell to it early this season. I was one of those people that was like, I don't know, the Magic might have to trade him. But again, post All-Star break, I was like, no, like this dude has still got it. He's still got it. And even in the playoffs, he's constantly shown that he's a good playoff performer. And it was no different versus the Pistons. To me, Paolo Banchero is so good out of the post. It's just that anything where he takes more than 3 dribbles and he's on the perimeter, that's what makes me nervous. I don't think that should be Paolo Banchero's game. Contrary to what the game has turned into, Paolo Banchero can have a long and successful career operating out of the mid and the high post. It just seems to be the position on the floor where he's way more comfortable. And not just as a scorer, but as a playmaker as well. I think he should really bring the ball up less and take less pull-ups. I want to see less pull-ups from Paolo and more post-game, more fadeaways, because that to me is his bread and butter. And that's going to help as long as Orlando keeps quality guards around him. He has been vocal about that because he knows his strengths and weaknesses. You got to get him a floor general. And I hope that in regards to Paolo in general, I just hope that the praise for him is just as loud as the premature panic, because we are in a world, not even just an NBA world, we are in a world, period, that is a lot more impatient. Everybody thrives off of instant gratification. And I'm so tired of fans and critics getting on these players who are just 4 years into their careers, like as if longevity isn't improving and they have a long career to be able to figure out things and master things and learn about themselves along the way. I hate this premature panic that people do. I understand you're only as good as your last game, but man, Paolo is still that dude, and he showed it in the playoffs. He showed it when it mattered the most. This looked like a team that just not only believed that they could steal game 1 from the Pistons, but this looked like a team that believes they can win this series. That they just had contagious energy. Everybody was fired up. The energy was there. That looked like a team who did their homework and said, nah, we ain't just going to win this game. We're going to try to win this series. And that's scary if you're the Detroit Pistons, because the Magic matched everything that they've been known to do. They matched their defensive aggression, and it's just a very good matchup for a 1 versus 8 series. This is a very good matchup. It's very much 4-5 as opposed to 1 versus 8. That's what I love about the playoffs, especially nowadays. You can't get too wrapped up in the seeding, because at the end of the day, it's all about matchups. It's all about what happens on that floor. And the Magic showed that in game 1. Also, I didn't even mention this. Also, their improved ball movement was very evident. I mean, the ball was moving from side to side. They just looked like such a different team when they're playing unselfishly. When you look at how diverse those assist numbers were, Paolo had 4. I believe Desmond Bain had 4. Suggs had 4. Wendell Carter had 4. Like Wagner had about 3 or 5 or something like that. Like they really the ball movement didn't come from one guy. They just really played really good team basketball. And to me, that's why they won that game. And it just felt like everybody was getting a touch, and it just made the Pistons defense work. The Pistons are a great defensive team, but the Magic did the right thing. They used their ball movement to make them work and force these late closeouts. And unfortunately, the Magic made shots, and it put the Pistons on the ropes. It put them on the ropes. And as I transition to the Pistons, ultimately, Cade Cunningham being the primary bright spot is exactly why people haven't been entirely sold on the Detroit Pistons. I'm a big fan of Tobias Harris's aggression. What he showed in game one, he knows how important his role is. I love that he was determined to get to the free throw line even when his shot wasn't falling. He woke up a little bit in the fourth quarter, I believe, or the third quarter it was. He knew his role. Again, being a veteran in this league, he knew what time it was. Jalen Duren had a very quiet game. And this is what I mean when I say him not being a low post threat concerns me a little bit. There are moments where you watch Jalen Duren and he just does not impose his will on the game, despite having the size that he has and all the muscles that he got. And like, I can't believe I'm saying this about a all-star player who was nearly averaging 20 points, 11 rebounds, but Jalen Duren can't afford to have nights like that where he's just kind of chilling. Like, he's got to impose his will on the game and find a way to be impactful, because in these playoff games, you need your stars to step up. And Jalen Duren, he can't be getting 8, 10, 12 points and 6 rebounds. Like, he's got to be that 20 and 10 guy that we've seen all year. He has to establish himself. And I'm going to give him and the Pistons grace because it is still a long series. I think this series especially, I would love for it to go 6 or 7 games. I think because the Pistons were down, I will say that the thing that Jalen Duren did well at, because the Pistons were down, he had to focus on getting Cade and Duncan Robinson and Tobias Harris open with on and off ball screens. So that became his priority. Like, I don't even have to look for my shot. I need to get these guys open. That's what I love that he focused on, but they still are going to need more from him offensively, because the Magic, they were taking away those pick and rolls. And again, when you take away those pick and rolls, you got to have other options. And the Pistons were able to stay afloat a little bit with the drive and kick game and whatnot. And obviously Cade was doing his thing, but it's going to be hard. If the Magic are playing like that, it's going to be hard to beat them. This series could definitely turn on its head. And I also thought it was an interesting choice for the Pistons to go 11 deep in the playoffs. I think it's necessary for a team that could always use extra defensive support and extra offensive burst. But deep rotations, as we know, don't always fare well in the playoffs, because deep rotations create gaps where opposing teams are able to dominate lineups where your best players aren't on the floor, right? So, I like I said, I'm not panicking whatsoever, but there were some alarming things from the Detroit Pistons. I definitely want to see 6 more games of this, though, because these teams are just so similar in nature. Imperfect offense, all-star caliber players, physical defenses, the exact kind of matchup you want for the playoffs. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Detroit responds, because they uncharacteristically let the Magic hit first. So I want to see them hit first in game 2 and remind people why they were the best team in the Eastern Conference record-wise. And then the last game 1 was the Portland Trailblazers and the San Antonio Spurs. And this was a fun game. It was a fun game. Like I said, I think a lot of people were counting out the Blazers because of their offense, but you can't sleep on who they have on that roster. And even when you look at the opening possessions, like, the Blazers' sole focus was to monitor Victor Wembanyama in pick and roll scenarios and off-ball pin downs. Like, they essentially wanted to take away anything from the free throw line to the basket. Like, they were kind of like zoning that area, and were totally fine with leaving Stephon Castle free to take top of the key threes because he's just not a great three-point shooter. And it allowed Donovan Clingan to stay close to the basket as the strong rim protector that he is. So it was a very interesting approach for the Blazers. I thought there was good aggression from Denny Avdia early on, but just a lot of bad three-point shots from the Blazers. That really stood out in game 1. Because Victor Wembanyama is so liable to block a shot, pretty much the only player they trusted to drive was Denny Avdia. Scoot Henderson woke up just a little bit in the third quarter, but if it wasn't Denny Avdia, the Blazers were forced to take threes that they're not a good three-point shooting team. They're not a good enough 3-point shooting team to thrive off drive and kick offense. And that just plays right into the Spurs' hands because the Spurs were able to get their hands in the passing lanes because they know the Blazers aren't going to shoot around Wemby. The minute they get around Wemby, they're going to look for somebody else. So we know we can have our hands wide and be ready to pick off anything. Like I said this in regards to the Golden State Warriors a few weeks ago. When you know a team is going to overpass, it is way more easy. It becomes way easier to pick off those passes and read those passes ahead of time. And the Spurs did an excellent job of that. And even when talking about the Blazers, much like what I said about the Sixers, the exact player that the Blazers were missing was unavailable to play. Damian Lillard. A guy that is capable of creating for himself on the perimeter, bringing pressure that opens up shots for other players. It doesn't force Denny Avdia to be the only consistent source of offense. And he can combat the Spurs defense with those deeper and those off dribble threes that he makes. And I would love to see Shaedon Sharpe get to his mid-range game more in a series like this because it's needed. And I think he and Scoot Henderson finally realized that around like the third and fourth quarters. When the paint is clogged and the spacing resembles 2000s basketball, this is going to force you to take mid-range shots or even threes. And because the Blazers weren't really open to taking those mid-range shots in the first half of the game, they were settling for bad three-pointers. And like I said, just playing into the Spurs' hands. The Blazers, like I said, have decent size and versatility, especially defensively, but they just don't have the offensive firepower to keep up with the Spurs for long periods of time. They were great in short bursts, but it was only a matter of time before the Spurs extended the lead again because the Blazers offense is just not able to keep up with them. And I respect the Blazers for wanting to take those threes and having the confidence to take them, but you have to value the basketball because they had cut the deficit to 2 points at one point in the game, but they had like 4 straight turnovers that prevented them from potentially taking the lead. Just bad passes, like I said, just crazy Spurs defense. And they also took a lot of early shot clock shots. I mean, they're getting stops on the other end, but because they're in transition, they understand that the best shot that's the best time to get an open three in a lot of ways. So they were taking them, but it's like quick shots are high risk, high reward. When you rush shots, those are basically turnovers. You know, that's my philosophy. Rush shots are basically turnovers. When you miss, it's just as if you intentionally threw the ball to the other team. If you take a quick shot and brick it and it's a rebound and they're off, you might as well have just thrown it to the other team. But when you make them, you tend to catch the defense off guard and swing momentum in your favor. Unfortunately for the Blazers, they suffered from the former rather than the latter. And that's going to be hard to sustain for a playoff series. And for the Spurs, man, Wemby is just unfair. Wemby is unfair in every way. He is unfair defensively. He is unfair to have that kind of handle that he displayed in the first quarter when he hit Denny Avdia with that behind the back spin move combo. It's absolutely unfair that he can shoot threes like a wing. It's unfair that he's the best pick and roll threat in the league. I mean, Victor Wembanyama is just unfair. He had such a stone cold night on both ends in game one. And even with his excellence, they still got some of those momentum lifting plays from guys like Devin Vassell, De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Julian Champagnie, especially Luke Cornett, who is always at the right place at the right time. They're just given exactly what the Spurs need to increase their championship hopes, and they came through. And Wemby, he's always the trending topic, but like I said, just the unity they display on defense, the active presence of Luke Cornett when Wemby sits, the ability to have multiple guards who can penetrate the defense just makes the Spurs the contender that they've shown to be. The depth that they have is never one-sided. It shows itself on offense and defense, and it really put the Blazers in trouble. The Blazers might be able to put up a better fight if they're able to take advantage of those open looks, but the Spurs just have too much. They have too much. This is going to be a good warm-up round for the San Antonio Spurs before they face either the Denver Nuggets or the Minnesota Timberwolves. And yeah, like they look like very comfortable in the playoffs. I didn't really sense anybody out of place. It was a good game one for the San Antonio Spurs. And like I said, I respect the fight from the Blazers, but Spurs got this. They got this because they are just too good on both ends. This is only the beginning of what looks to be a very fun and intense playoff season. Let me know which matchup has been your favorite so far, what takeaways are standing out to you thus far, and what improvements you'd like to see in future games. In the meantime, though, that's all I got for today's show. If you like this episode, please don't be shy and let me know. Honest reviews and ratings on podcast platforms are always appreciated. I take a lot of pride in creating and delivering episodes that respect the game and its players while emphasizing a courtside and pure perspective for fans like us who grew up with that kind of honest and passionate coverage and want to see it return in this space. So I would love to know how I'm doing on that end. Please be sure to follow and interact with the socials. Like I said, at MidPostPod on Twitter/Instagram, at DesmondPowell_ on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. So you always have a way to stay connected. In the meantime, I'll catch you in the post next week. I hope your playoff team had a good start. If not, this is a safe space, and understand that there is plenty of basketball left. Peace out and God bless.